Hello, AIM9 Guy here. In this video we pick up where we left off last week with the paint, decals, panel line wash, and some weathering. Plus I show a couple techniques to add realism to the rotor blades and exhaust. Let's get right to it. After the initial seam cleanup and masking was completed, I painted primer on the entire fuselage with Tamiya black. I held off adding the landing gear struts and other exterior details to make it easier to paint. I also glued the cockpit and cabin doors with PVA or white glue so that they could easily be removed after painting and reattached in the open position. I elected to do a freehand camo on this one, and to aid in that, I first started by carefully drawing out the pattern with a watercolor pencil on the black primer. This will serve as a guide as I paint. It's hard to see it in this footage, but it's there. A light touch is best as I don't want to score the paint surface. I was fortunate that Tamiya XF81 Dark Green 2 and XF82 Ocean Grey 2 are a good match for the British grey and green seen on these aircraft. I thin the paint 70% paint to 30% X20A Tamiya thinner, and my airbrush is set to about 20 to 25 pounds of pressure. You want to be relaxed, test your airbrush on a paint mule on paper towel to ensure the spray, and then get in close. With the paint thinned, the pressure down, and the tip of the airbrush close to the surface, you'll get a pretty tight demarcation line and eliminate a lot of the overspray. Any mistakes can always be fixed with a respray. I outline the shape and then slowly build up the paint around the details, allowing a lot of the variation as the black underpainting shows through in places. Take your time, and if you feel yourself getting tense, take a break. Wipe the tip of the airbrush often to prevent any dried paint splatter. Here is the gray paint being applied. The variation of the paint can really be seen in this view. It may appear exaggerated, but once you apply clear coats, decals, and weathering, it will be much more subtle. Once the camo is applied, I paint the underside. This was with a Tamiya black with a drop or two of gray to keep it from being too dark. Once dry, I coated the fuselage with a couple light coats of Winsor Newton gloss varnish. I thin this with a little water with a drop of dishwashing soap in it to break down the viscosity. This gloss coat prevents silvering of the decals and provides a good surface for the panel line wash to easily flow over. Let's apply the decals. Applying decals starts with the water I dip the decals in. This is a warm water that has a drop of dishwashing soap in it also. This slippery mixture is applied before the decals and allows me to move the decal around and get it where I want it. Even though these decals were beautifully printed, I think they were a bit old because they took a while to come loose from the backing paper. I had to have patience and allow extra time for the decals to come loose without forcing and tearing them. Some of them took quite a while to come loose. I kept dipping them in the warm water and letting them sit until they started to loosen. Once applied, I position them with a wet finger and then dab off the excess with a Q-tip. Once they are dry, I apply Walther's Solvaset decal solution and they started to snuggle down over the details nicely. The setting solution is applied multiple times as needed to ensure the decals are adhered correctly. The rotors come molded with the sag applied to them, which is a nice touch. Reference photos show some splotchy wear and fading on these blades, so I simulated that by applying dabs of Vallejo medium sea gray with a sponge along the length of the blade. Once dry, I oversprayed these blotches with a thin dark gray acrylic to knock back the effect. The big exhaust sticking out the sides of the fuselage are one of the most distinctive features of this variant of the Wessex. I wanted to give the exhaust a little attention to add some realism. I first painted the exhaust with Tamiya X31 titanium gold to give it a tarnished look. Next, I rubbed graphite from a pencil over the exhaust to provide a metallic sheen and a more sooty, worn look. The last step was to run a pencil along the edges of the exhaust to give it a metal edge. Back to the fuselage. Let's add some panel wash. I love this step in the process, and for the panel wash, I used a combination of dark brown and Wash for NATO Camo AK panel line washes, thinned with a little bit of odorless thinner. Applying it to the rivets, in the panel lines, and around details, I let this mixture dry a bit, and then came back with a damp brush with thinner on it to brush away the excess. The trick here is to work sections at a time and clean your brush often. In places where you want a little grime, you leave some of the wash accumulation around the details. I work quickly, and if an area needs more wash, I come back around to it. The point here is to work areas at a time and not let it sit too long and stain the paint underneath. Even with the clear coat for protection, I've had a few instances where the wash etched the paint and I had to repaint some areas. Working quickly prevents that from happening. Here I start to remove the excess wash on the other side. Here's a shot of the underside. I weathered it with thinned oil paint using the same process as the enamel washes. I would apply it and then go back with a damp brush and take away the excess. Note that I took care to use the same colors that match the dust effects on the cabin, wheels, and cockpit for consistency. Here are a few shots of the completed model with the wheel struts, wheels, doors reattached, and the antennas added. I've pointed out some of the details that I added. This kit is a great starting point for this subject, and I'm glad I took the time to rescue it from the shelf of doom. I'd like to hear what you thought about the build, and feel free to share one of your rescue builds. I have a number of kits that were started and for one reason or another stalled. I plan on sharing some of those builds with you. If there's a particular subject or genre you'd like Steve featured on my channel, drop me a line. I will respond to all your comments. So it took a year to get completed, but once I got back into it, I had a great time completing this helicopter. I hope you enjoyed as I shared the steps it took to bring it back to life. My goal for this video was to be both insightful and entertaining. Please let me know if I've succeeded in the comments. I love talking models with other modelers, and it helps my channel grow. Thanks for watching.